Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Loud Fairy Gremlins podcast, where we are cute, highly trained fluffs prepared to take over your computer. Thank you for joining us this evening. I appreciate it greatly. We are in store for a 2-hour-long podcast where we are joined by two panelists this evening discussing the game Brawlhalla. In the first hour of our broadcast, we will be taking a very laser-focused look at the game of Brawlhalla. And then in the second hour of this broadcast, we'll open up to a bit more of a casual conversation and talk about how Brawlhalla fits into indie gaming scene as it is today, and how it exists as a game in general in the greater scope of things. So, without further ado, let us introduce our panelists. I am joined by two lovely panelists today. If you would be so kind as to introduce yourselves, what you do, and where we can find you on social media. Let's go ahead and today we'll begin with Nars.
Hi guys, hello, I am Nars. I'm an event coordinator and video game aficionada, also founder of GG Vogue, which is a New York City-based video game marketing agency that works with small and big gaming brands. You can find me on Twitter at @1_Nars.
Perfect, thank you. And we are also joined by our guest from Brawlhalla himself, the executive producer, Zeke Sparks. Would you care to introduce yourself, Zeke?
Hey everybody, I'm Zeke Dinohedron Sparks. I'm the executive producer on Brawlhalla, and basically that's what I do. I've been in the game industry for a pretty long time. I've been doing video games for about 8 years. Worked at Cryptic before coming out here to start working on Brawlhalla.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's great to have you on the show, and thanks for joining us. So without further ado, our customary first question for the first hour of our broadcast is usually as follows. Would you care to tell us a little bit about your game?
Yeah, sure. So Brawlhalla is a 2D platform fighter. Basically, you get in, you beat up your buddies, send them flying off the edge of the screen. That's how you score points. And we built it so that you could play however you like playing the game. So you can be local, you can be online, you can play together, sort of in a co-op. You can play 1v1. You can do timed modes. You can do stock modes. So
I've got a sword.
We just wanted to make it so that whoever you remember playing with back in the past when you first started playing fighting games, you can get back in touch with them no matter where they are and have a really good, smooth experience.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that description. So what was the size that worked on this team? How many folks were involved?
It grew slowly as the project went. It initially started as a spin-off from one of our previous games. So it started with a small team, probably 4 or 5 people, kind of as an exploratory thing. And it grew all the way. We're up to, I think, 14 now is our full size. So a little bit big for an indie size, but very small focus team as far as most projects go.
That's awesome.
And speaking of most projects, I know that you guys also worked on a different game, Dungeon Blitz. And there's a lot of similarities to that game. What would you say would be kind of like the birth of Brawlhalla following from Dungeon Blitz that kind of created what the game is today?
So it actually it flowed right out of Dungeon Blitz. So Dungeon Blitz is a 2D side-scrolling MMO. It's a full functioning MMO, and you can play it through your browser, and really accessible and fun game. A lot of people playing it. But when Dungeon Blitz was first made, we knew we had to focus. We didn't have time to do PvP and PvE. So Dungeon Blitz is PvE focused, and one of the biggest questions you always get asked is, well, when can we PvP? When can we PvP? And so we started looking into how to build a PvP for Dungeon Blitz, and basically very quickly realized that, okay, this is super fun. It needs to be its own game, and that's kind of where the very, very first little seed for Brawlhalla started, and then it just kind of took off from there, all on its own. So, but still in that similar, we love the 2D art style, sort of that we always say we're trying to capture that Saturday morning cartoon feeling, and that's just kind of in our DNA as a studio. And we love that there's a resurgence of it, and so it's kind of natural that the one flowed from the other and got us to where we are now.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a scene from the background of one of your maps, and something harkens back to Dr. Wily a little bit. In the background, I see a pirate ship. You know, I'll put it up so the viewers can see as well. But as soon as you said that Saturday morning cartoon and other things like that, Mega Man used to have a cartoon. Little do many of you know, but yeah, that pirate ship in the background just harkens back to like Wily's skull in a way. It's different, but it's
I can see that.
It's evoking strong feelings in me, I would say.
Well, that's good. That's what we want. That's. I mean, we're also mostly we make the game that we want to see, right? And so that's the kind of thing that we love, and so we're just trying to relive the Saturday morning cartoon days, I think.
That is cool. So, what engine was this game created in?
So it's a mixture. Most of it, it's the underlying backbone of it is a proprietary engine that we built ourselves. Two of the founders of the studio are some of the best programmers I've ever worked with, and they knew how to do online games. We came from MMOs, and they started the studio. I came out later. But they knew how to build that multiplayer online scaling infrastructure from the scratch. And so the backbone, all the netcode and stuff is proprietary. And then we do the art generation is in Photoshop and in Flash, and then we use some ActionScript to do the game mechanics on top. So it's kind of a mix right now of kind of all those different things coming together.
That is very interesting and cool. Proprietary systems are always great. And I'm glad you brought up netcode. I'll be sure to bring that up after Nars has a turn to ask a question too.
Yeah.
But what is your favorite feature of this engine? What has pleased you the most during design?
So I'd say the biggest upside is again the programmers knew what we needed out of all these tools to make a 2D game, and so it's really honed for that process, for the hand tweaked animation, hand animated, sort of manipulating 2D elements around on the screen. And kind of the biggest strength that we have of the way it's set up is you can very quickly prototype and get stuff into game. So working on the art assets kind of happens at the same layer as working on the sort of game level scripting. So it's very easy to kind of do small tweaks and get them in game right away and see what it does. And so that makes such a huge difference in the development process, that instead of having to like go do all the changes you think you want and then make sure you get a nice big list of them and then go through the process of importing all of that into the game, launch the game, get the game going, get in there, see what all the new changes did. It's just kind of the speed that you can iterate at is really, really important.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. The next segment that I usually ask, or the question that I usually ask of this question is, what would you recommend for people who are just starting out and they want to do 2D, perhaps a fighter game or just a 2D game in general? Which would you recommend? Because a lot of times they've got an idea, they're very ambitious, they're ready to commit, but they get caught up just at the first step. Which engine? And since yours is proprietary, you can't necessarily recommend yours, but are there any that operate somewhat similarly to your engine, where you're allowed to do that rapid iteration, where you're allowed to easily import the 2D, the assets?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to say. It depends on how you set them up. So there's a lot of really powerful tools out there, like Unity, that's just like a full off-the-shelf system that you can get into, and you can kind of make any kind of game you want with it. But you have to sort of know what you're after. If you want to do something like really, really quick and dirty, if you're just getting started, you can look at some of the things like Game Maker, where it's more traditional gaming 2D style, so it's less the kind of hand animated Saturday morning cartoon style. More pixel animation is a lot easier in that system. But they're I wouldn't get too hung up on the tools. Now, our programmers are fantastic, and they built our tools from the ground up to do what we wanted to do. We're very lucky that we were able to go into it that way. So I would kind of look at what systems you feel comfortable using. There's so many options that are out there now. It's a really great time to start getting into game dev as like an indie, because you don't need a tools programmer to get into it, right? There's all sorts of places that you can go where you can just start messing with the tools right away and see which one you're comfortable working in. And that's really the best choice, I think, if you're just getting started.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. I see chat says we're not listening to chat. That's not true.
Oh, sorry, chat. We are listening. We're just very heavily invested in this game. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the actual semantics of the game, especially the structure of it. So a lot of people will say that this game is a lot like Super Smash Brothers,
Sure.
and it does have a lot of the aesthetics, but there's a lot of semantics. There's a lot of design to it that's particularly different. So you have something that I'm so happy for this. You not only have a double jump, but you also have a parry and a sweep up, another ability that sweeps up. So literally, if you're like at the edge of the world, you can literally come right back to the actual platform. When you were designing the game, what were some aesthetics, like obviously that you wanted to incorporate from other games, but the stuff that you definitely wanted to make it unique to Brawlhalla on its own from a design level?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's it's the same genre. Smash is certainly like the most dominant in that genre. It's kind of a niche of the fighting game genre. Sort of the platform fighter is what most people call it. And so when we're big fans of all fighting games basically, and a lot of the inspiration comes from all different places. The mechanic, we really liked the mechanic in Smash, the building up damage, sending people flying. It's got this kind of larger than life. Huge hits that just have your characters rocketing across the screen. It feels really fun. And so we went with that, and then we sort of took the approach of, well, what would we want to see in that style of game from ground up? And you talked about there's a ton of recovery. So you can you've got 2 air jumps and 1 ground jump. So if you're jumping from the ground, you've got 3 jumps total. You were talking about the dodge. It's directional, so you can get a little bit of extra lateral recovery or vertical recovery out of it. And then there's also a recovery move that you can use to give you an extra one. So there's a lot of airplay in our game, and we really liked what that did. So the playing field isn't just kind of the ground and then a little bit above the ground. The playing field really opens up. Your movement is kind of anywhere you want to go. And even when you get those big hits, which happen really quickly in the game, there's a lot that you can do to kind of get back into the game and keep fighting. So we did that. And then sort of the biggest thing that we did was the 2 weapon system. And so the way moves work in our game, a good chunk of your moveset is actually dictated by the weapon you're using. And each character has a combination of 2 different weapons that they can use. And the combination is unique to them, but other characters will use one or the other of those weapons as well. Or some characters do. So, for instance, I always talk about Bodvar. He's kind of our archetypical Viking. He's our guy. He uses hammer and sword. He's the only character in the game that can use a hammer and a sword. There's other characters that use hammer, like Nash, our big caveman guy, or primal hunter. There's other people who use swords, like Hattori, our ninja. She uses a sword. And so there is a certain core set of moves, the lighter, faster moves that will translate between those characters. And then Bodvar has his own special moves on top of that kind of make his playstyle his. And so you actually can shift your moveset out completely in the middle of play. And it gives you a lot of, you kind of have to respond to what your opponent's doing. You have to think about, well, is this the right weapon matchup? Is there a better weapon matchup? Should I change my style? Do I want to switch from being kind of an aggressive rush down character to sort of defensive? And you can pick characters that you change that up in the middle of play. And that's something that we've never, there's fighting games that have stances and styles, but not quite to the extent that what we're doing. So that's one of the biggest things that we did, I think, to really make it feel good. And one of the things that helps with is, especially since we're free to play and we have lots of characters, you actually, if you have a style that you like, you can explore other characters without learning them from the ground up. That's one of the things that we like the most about it. So, if you learn Bodvar and you're very comfortable using Bodvar, but he's not quite what you're looking for when we release a new character, as long as they have a sword or hammer, then you've got a little bit of an inroad to that new character. You don't have to just start at the very base level of learning again.
Absolutely. And also another thing that you can incorporate, something that I saw also that makes the game very meta, is the fact that there's stats to the weapons, but there's also stats to the characters that are applied, and then depending on what weapon you pick up compared to what character, there's you either have an advantage or you don't. And I thought it was really interesting how you guys how each character has limited to two types of weapons, but those weapons are a mixture, but they're not sort of open. So like let's say that Hattori can't pick up a hammer, or
Right.
something like that. Is that something that you guys did purposely, or is that something that you guys are open to change, or like what exactly was the conceptualization of when you guys made sure, okay, these characters are just going to have these distinctive types of weapons and just two?
Yeah, so actually that is something that did change. And just a shout out, I saw that Pixie Punch was saying so professional. We strive for being professional on our streams. We started streaming, and we're a pretty relaxed goofball group of people. So you should check out our streams if you think that if the caveman guy was a misstep. We do all sorts of horrible things on camera. But getting back to the question, we actually started with a totally different setup. We started with defining, we were thinking of it like using the weapons to define the characters and letting players build their character as an avatar. So we actually started with like kind of the idea was you would be able to unlock parts and costume pieces and kind of build who you wanted to be. And then you would be able to define your play style by helping adjust the random weapons that you would pick up. So everybody could use all of the weapons at the very, very beginning of Brawlhalla. And what happened is when we brought that out, when we loved it. We were like, yeah, this is it. We came up with this cool, like, all of the weapons are they come in these like sort of airdrop crates, and you, before you went into your battle, could sort of set what you wanted in those crates. So you could say, if you're a sword guy, you could put in, more swords than the other weapons, right? But you would have to kind of earn and unlock them. And we had this whole crazy system plot out. And we were like, yeah, this is it. We love it. This is the best thing. It's so good. Everybody's going to love it. We brought it out and people started playing it. And it just wasn't coming across. They were saying, well, what's my character? How is my character different than other characters? And I really want to be invested in what this character is. But everybody can use everything, and so everything just felt kind of mushy, kind of just like it was all the same. And so we had we sat back and we thought about it, and community feedback is huge for us. It is not just kind of in oh yeah, we like the community, so we want to make sure that the community thinks that we're listening and paying attention. They have a huge impact on the game, and it's kind of, the farther we go in the process, the more the game kind of becomes what the community wants. And so we heard that feedback, and boy, it was so hard to sit down and listen to that, because it's kind of the core of the game, right? It's the backbone of the game, but it wasn't coming across. So we just, okay, how could we change it? How can we get people what they're after? How can we hit these notes that we're just missing completely? And that's when we said, okay, we got it. Well, let's go. Let's build characters, real, honest characters that have a look and a name and a history and a backstory. It's really what people are asking us for in the game. It's what they're feeling is missing. And we'll limit. They can't use all the weapons. They'll have only 2 weapons that they can use. And so you won't be able to kind of build out anymore what's coming and dropping down for you. It's pre-selected. And then we'll give them signature moves with it. And it was a huge shift for us, and it was really scary. I remember somebody thought about it over the weekend, and they were like, okay, all right, this is crazy, but what if we did this? And everybody was like, whoa, that's totally different. I don't know if that'll work. But the more we thought about it, the more we saw that that's the right way to go. And we started putting that out there and getting people playing it and getting their feedback. And it was just met with great reception from the community. And so then we just kind of built on that. And there's been a couple of stages along the way where we've changed, exactly what belongs to the character and what belongs to the weapon and how that mixture goes back and forth. And it's taken a long time to fine tune it. But all of that was community driven. It was all feedback driven. So, we're always very, very open to change. I mean, we're really far down the process now, right? So it's not like that's something that's likely to change moving into the future, because it's kind of what we've crafted together with the community. But yeah, it was a really big shift, and directly related to what all the players were actually telling us.
That's amazing. Like, for a company to decide to be like, okay, guys, we're going to just throw everything that we decided to design out the window. We're just going to go with what these guys are saying, like the community's saying. And I think that's not only ambitious, but that takes a lot of courage. And I respect you guys so much for making that, because the game is amazing. It really is amazing. So,
well, it's hard to get over that hump, and to take feedback in, like legitimately really take feedback in, because your first reaction just as a human being is, oh, just kind of put up a defensive wall, right? And be like, well, they don't understand, or they don't get it. But it's so critical. I mean, to me, that's why the game is getting the reception it is, and why the community is growing the way it is because we have to find the game, not just that we want to make, but we have to find the game that our players want us to make. And it's a big commitment, but I think it's the reason that things are going the way they are.
That's amazing. And I would like to very much combo off of this conversation. And when someone else, perhaps a viewer, is in their design process, perhaps they belong to a studio, perhaps they're working on a small team or even a solo project, when should you really get that critical feedback? How many iterations should you feel comfortable with at first? Because you did a bold thing, and you're right. You said something very key. You said we're very far along in the process now. Yeah. And even though you are a team focused on change, it's highly unlikely at this stage you're going to take a trip back to the drawing board. So When is that point of no return? When is that sweet spot? And when do you go for the focus groups or the criticism? And how do you field it?
That's a tough question. And it depends on the structure of the team that you're working with. So one of the advantages of a small team and an indie team is that you can be flexible and you can try stuff and you can get that feedback really early. And in my opinion, it's pretty critical to embrace that. And you have to have, so I would say you have to show something that is complete in some way. You can't show just an idea to a potential player base or fans and have that come out well, because if it's just an idea, everybody can read into it exactly what they think and say, oh yeah, that's great. And then when you actually build it out, it's not at all what people were thinking, and then people are upset and they're angry. And so for us, that core was like the feel of the fighting and the gameplay. And I mean, we thought part of that core was everybody can use all the weapons, and so that was kind of like the big thing that got turned on its head when we did put it out there. But you want to show stuff as early as you can. I mean, if it's just team feedback, you can show it even earlier. One of the things that we always it's hard to do this, and it's easy to say, but it's fail faster is kind of this creative idea and motto. And the idea is, it's rare that your first thought, or that what you think is going to work, is actually the thing that's going to work, right? Because it comes from, of course it makes sense in your head because you're the person who came up with it. And so then when it kind of goes out into the wild, there's all these other elements that come into play, and it's very rare that your first iteration is the thing that works. And so finding ways to get the essence of that idea out there as early as you can so that you can get valuable feedback on it is critical, because then you can actually react. You can try to identify what's wrong with that and going in a new direction, and skip like all of this extra time that would have taken to make it a polished thing. And then when you find out that that's wrong, you kind of have the sunk cost involved, right? And so finding ways to test the idea as early as you can is really important. I know there's a lot of studios, even big studios, do that same philosophy. It just winds up being a little bit more structured and rigid. There's a lot of places that the first thing you do is all just completely white boxed. There's no trappings on top of it. There's no cosmetics on top of it. There's no idea of what it looks like. It's just, get in a white boxed environment and run around. And if running around and moving in the environment doesn't feel good, then you got to change it. You got to go back and fix it. And that's even before you put on like, okay, well, this is Halo, so here's all our sci-fi stuff that we put onto it, and here's what specific weapons you have, and here's the specific layout. You got to kind of find those iteration points and go through them until you can get to the next point. Otherwise, you just wind up with this. If we had kept going with what we had, we would have been so far down the path and so entrenched that it would have been like, okay, well, a lot of people don't like it, but I guess they're not going to like it, and we're going to have to maybe do a small tweak here or there. But it depends environment to environment. But in my opinion, it's really uncomfortable, but it is really worth it to show a thing as early as you can in order to get real feedback and find out if you're going in the right direction before you go down that direction first.
Absolutely. So I wanted to go back to character modifications. So I know that you guys have implemented a skin system. You can also purchase skins in the lobby as well. Are you guys going to expand? Because I know like League of Legends is kind of the same aesthetics where they have a free-to-play game, but they do make a lot of their money from skins, and they keep pumping out skins like it's nobody's business. Are you guys going to bless us with some amazing cool skins, maybe based off some infamous characters, maybe some Marvel, DC, although not copyright material, but you get the idea.
So I mean, the short answer is it's a very similar model where the game is just flat out full on free to play. You can play all the content for free. There's no power behind pay barriers. There's no content behind pay barriers. We have a weekly rotation of different heroes that you can try. You can unlock them all, not as a grind. You can unlock them just as a reward through playing the game. If you don't want to do that, you can shortcut it. But the bulk of everything that we do is cosmetic. And so it's the same kind of model where we just have to keep listening to the community. Again, this is another place where we just have to keep our ears open and pay attention and find out what they think the coolest skins would be, or what the coolest. We also do weapon skins. So if you're a hammer user, you can get a special skin that makes the hammer look like, a big sci-fi atomic warhead or something like that. And so there's a lot of different customization avenues that we have. Your little sidekicks, you can change those to the guys that come and pick you up and drop you back off when you get KO'd. But yeah, we will continue to add new skins to the game. That's, as a free-to-play game, we're live and we support it live, and we don't really change the team, and we keep adding to it as long as people are playing it and liking it. So it's it's really cool. It's really fun, and our problem isn't what are we going to come up with to get people excited. It's which of all of these awesome ideas that are out there are we going to do. And as far as the obviously we can't put in Marvel and DC skins unless we strike up a deal with Marvel and DC or something like that. But hopefully, if there's a feeling or a style that you like as a player, we'll be able to find a way to scratch that itch in the game at some point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All and ninja skins, Harrison Songbird. All ninja skins is a pretty that would that's not a bad idea.
For the new patches, are you guys going to continually update different like each of the characters, or the patches for the character stats going to stay as is?
So we as a live game, we get the ability to balance things anytime we find something that's out of whack. So if we find something that's off base, and again, we're constantly listening to what the players say. So we've got all sorts of, you can come onto Twitch, you can come onto our Steam forums. There's a great subreddit for it. There's people leaving reviews on Steam. We go through all of that, and we're listening to what the players are feeling in the game, and we kind of match that up with all the data that we collect, and try to kind of coordinate the two and sort of figure out what's happening under the hood. And so if something's out of whack, we'll fix it. We don't have to set it in stone at any point, and that's one of the things that we love. It's fantastic. So if something's not working, we'll fix it. If something's too strong, we'll fix it. If something's too weak, we'll fix it. But in general, most of the characters, by the time they go out, we're pretty happy with, and we think they're in a good spot. And so we don't want to change like the core identity of those characters, unless we get to a point where we find out that the whole player base just isn't clicking with a character, and for some reason we can figure out what it is, and then maybe we would shift it. But so it's a pretty non-committal answer, I know, but we definitely will keep making balance better as the game goes on. We'll just constantly be making balance better, and then we have the option to change stuff if we need to, but we don't want to shift what a character is. Just kind of, if we find something that's wrong with the character, we can fix that.
So,
Absolutely.
Oh, did you have another one? Is it time for me to do a combo breaker? Combo breaker. But those were a series of great questions, Nars. Thank you. I was wanting to touch on something we discussed earlier when we were talking about netcode. And I know from playing Street Fighter that netcode can kind of make or break your community in a certain way. And not to say that it was broken in Street Fighter, but you see it was a point of contention. And in this game, you don't even, I don't think that's going to ever be a point of contention. It can't be, because I'm not thinking about the netcode, I'm just playing the game. The latency is always good. Finding a match is never really a difficult thing to do. So, in this case, it isn't going to be a point of contention. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it seems that like the netcode itself, though, what challenges did you face to get the game to this state? How many iterations did you have to go through? And you mentioned you had an army of like netcode programmers. So I guess really focusing my question is, what challenges did you face when creating the netcode for this game?
So you constantly face challenges with netcode, and your experience is great, and I love it. And we've tried as hard as we can to make it as smooth as we can. But we definitely still have issues, and we see problems, especially when people are playing like from cross countries. And so we've got localized servers now. Before we had that, we were funneling everything through Atlanta, no matter where you were, we're in Atlanta, a lot of what we were doing there is getting some of the worst case scenarios that we could get from people playing from really far away and seeing how to deal with it. And so there's so much that goes on. It's really hard to pin it down to one thing. There's kind of there's your networking code and how it deals with things. There's the actual infrastructure and how it's set up. So that's even as simple as, well, we have servers in North America and Europe and in Southeast Asia now, and we're expanding even more. And then a big one that people overlook a lot of times is the game design. We built the game from the ground up knowing that it was going to be online focused. And so we made a lot of decisions that play into that and make it so that networking them is possible. There are some games that, no matter how good your network engineers are, they're not built to be networked well. So there's a lot of kind of local fighting games that are very, very fast and super lethal, like Samurai Gun or Towerfall, and they are super, super fun games. But because they're so instant and so lethal and so deadly, it's almost like a binary thing, right? You get hit once and you're out. And they're so fast and responsive that when you take that online, it doesn't really matter how good your infrastructure is or what kind of wizards you have working on your netcode. You're going to feel those milliseconds loss between you and your opponent. And so by being conscious of that, while we're designing the game, we can give ourselves the best chance to deliver a smooth experience. And so we've got, here's like an example of this is when you throw an item and you hit somebody, there's actually a hit pause in the game. It's small, it's 3 frames, and so you throw an item, and instead of it doing this, you throw the item, and there's a pause before the person goes and it flies. And in particular, this is good for the bombs, explosive items. And the reason that we do that is so that there's a little bit of extra time for the server to make sure that the client is seeing what it thinks it's seeing before we send the result off. Because when there's such a drastic result as like a bomb explosion, if you mispredict it, you really feel it. And you see that person fly, and then they show back up in your face. And then you're like, what happened? I don't understand. I hit them with the bomb, and then they went away, but now they're back, and they're teleporting all over the place. And I don't know. So adding that hit stun, it doesn't make it feel wrong. But it slows it down just a tiny little bit so that you have a little bit extra time for that traffic to get from the player to the server and back to the player. Even deciding that it's going to be a server-based game is one of those things that gets really contentious. A lot of people want it to be peer-based so they can go straight from one computer to another. And that's fantastic when you have two computers that connect quickly to each other. But when when you're not controlling your opponent and you're getting these connections from farther and farther away, if we make it server-based, we can make sure that one, there's less cheating, or ideally no cheating, and two, that it's a more consistent experience, just because we know we're building it from that way up the whole time, and so we get to control a little bit more of that equation, and so. There's just all of these decisions that come together to make it play as well as it does online. But there's only so much you can solve. You never have, it's always going to be slower to play an opponent if you're in the United States and they're in Europe than it is to play somebody that's right next to you, right? Mm-hmm. But we are always working on it. We're constantly trying to find the smallest improvement that we can do to make any benefit, and it pays huge dividends. So we always have people watching, and we get great support from the community. When they have issues, we reach out to them and say, hey, can you give us this debug info, and we can look at it and we can try to figure out what's going on and see if we can eliminate some of these tiny little slowdowns that you can really feel in a fighting game.
Right, and a lot of people who are working on their own games at home who are watching, they might have the question, like, when do I implement a netcode into my game? And I think you touched on that a little bit. I think, well, from your game in particular, it was from the get-go. You had always planned on that being an occurrence. But other than that, as soon as possible is the answer?
No, actually, so we knew we were going to be online. So we started the first stage of it, which was just being aware that you're going to be online and designing to give yourself a helping hand with the netcode. So that's like stage one. But we didn't implement the netcode right away, right? We had to get the game right first. You get the game so that it feels good and it plays right and it's working locally and you know that it's working the way you want it to and that it's the direction you're going to go. And then after that step, you start working on the netcode, because you don't want to. There's choices that you'll make when you're doing the netcode that can be dependent on how the game works, and so you don't want to start doing those things before you actually know what the game itself is. Once you're pretty sure how the game's going to play and feel, then start working on the netcode as soon as you can, so that you can make sure that it feels the same online as it does when you're playing local. So it's very, very hard to retroactively do netcode on a game, especially if you're not thinking about it in the design process at the beginning. And that's why you can get into a trouble spot if you're not thinking about it, at least at the start, because you'll get to a point where you're like, okay, I love it, this is great, okay, how am I going to network it? I don't know. There's so many things in here that I can't tell how I'm going to be able to network them quickly. So you pay attention to it at the beginning, then make sure you get the game feeling the way you want, and then start working on the netcode.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And I mean, it doesn't have to be online, right? Like Samurai Gun is a fantastic game. We love it. It is amazing. And I'm sure that at the beginning of that project, I don't think they got blindsided by knowing that I'm not going to network this. That was a decision that they made at the beginning. We're going to make a local game because the feel that we want is something that's really only going to work local. We don't want to compromise that, and so they, that was it's a conscious decision, and that's kind of the other way to go. But you just have to go through those questions at the start of the project and make sure you're keeping it in mind, so that when you start on it, you're going to be in good shape.
Perfect. Thank you. That was a great answer.
Mm-hmm. So I want to get into a little bit of the lore of Brawlhalla. And I know there is a lore because I was dissecting each of the characters bios. And the Wikipedia, I don't know if did you guys make that Wikipedia yourself? I'm
No,
guessing you
no,
did.
that's community driven.
This community, it is amazing how detailed this community is. I
Oh
honestly
yeah.
give the community applause. So my question is, are the warriors brought to Valhalla after their death, or are they stuck
Yeah.
in the warped universe? Like, because yeah,
they're brought up after they get it get it out in the middle of a battle or something. So it's kind of a expansion of the traditional idea of Valhalla. So our thought behind it is, well, why just pull up Norse heroes? If you're going to get ready for this big battle at the end of time, you want the best, baddest ass warriors you can get. And so it's kind of a bigger place than maybe the Norse thought it was. And so that's why there's characters from all sorts of different backgrounds, but they definitely fall in battle. There's a couple of exceptions. If you go through the lore, you could find out there's a couple that get there in kind of strange, weird, questionable ways. But in general, most of them were all warriors that kind of fell at some point.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because I believe in Hattori's story, she came upon the Valhalla, the eternal tournament, but
Yeah.
then Queen Nai kind of like falls into the Valhalla, and it's just kind of like, what's going on? Is this like a warped universe? Is this an eternal tournament after death that they just constantly are a part of? And I thought it was really interesting, though, with Sir Roland's bio, though. He sees Valkyrie Hypernia.
Uh-huh.
Who is Valkyrie Hypernia?
She's one of the Valkyries. So the Valkyries are the people who go and pick who's going to go to Valhalla. They go on the battlefield and they choose half of the people that are in the battle that die in the battle to go to Valhalla. And so he sees her before he's actually dying, and then he's kind of dedicating his life to her. He's trying to catch another glimpse, and he kind of falls in love with her. And then sort of the tragic thing is he's kind of everybody else is here and he's up here, and so he's kind of untouched. He doesn't actually ever fall in battle, and that's why she comes down and sucker punches him when he's kind of old and on his deathbed to make sure that he can get in on a technicality.
I thought that was hilarious. Like, it's like, okay, get up here already. We need you.
Yeah, she didn't want to see him go. So yeah, they're all, and Hattori's, I think, is in a way that there's a couple of different ways that you can read it. It's maybe she found it on her own, or maybe in her journeys she failed at some point and wound up pushing up daisies and then showed up in Valhalla. But so we like to make sure that there's a little bit there that you can kind of talk about and chew on and sort of try to figure out on your own.
We're going into Twitch chat right now, and Red Kangaroo is asking, will there be Valkyrie characters playable eventually in the game?
There is a half Valkyrie character playable right now. Bryn is half human, half Valkyrie. I wonder how that happened.
Is Orion considered a Valkyrie too, or is he just a normal warrior?
Oh, it depends on who you're talking to. So I'm sure the Valkyries kind of want to claim him. I wouldn't. He's definitely. He doesn't seem to be a Valkyrie, right? Because he's not flying around and choosing people and picking them up and carrying them back to Valhalla. But is he Asgardian? Is he from somewhere else? He's the man of mystery.
Yeah, he is. No one knows what he looks like underneath that big giant metal pin.
Yeah, well, as certainly none of the competitors in Brawlhalla do.
Absolutely.
So, did you have another one?
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Sorry. I'm going to combo break this one. And would you be so kind as to explain how you go about balancing the fighters in your game?
Yeah, very carefully. Very, very slowly. So again, we think of things first from the weapon standpoint. And the biggest additions that we make are when we put a new weapon into the game. And we come up with a concept of what we want the weapon to look like and feel like and also play like. And those aren't necessarily always the same thing. And sometimes they go against one another. So we just released Ember is our first bow character. So she is the first character that come out with a brand new weapon, the bow, which was one that we knew was going to take a long time to get to feel right. Because this is a fighting game. It's an up close and personal fighting game. And we knew that getting a bow to feel good and feel like a bow and not be broken was going to be really hard. And so we tried a lot of different iterations before we found out how it was going to play. We knew we wanted to get a bow. There's so many awesome legend archetypes that you can do with a bow. It's such an important, iconic weapon. So we knew we had to get it in there. And we tried kind of everything from maybe it actually does just have arrows that fire all the way across the screen, and we try to find a way to make that balanced. And all of the ways to make that feel balanced were just not fun, right? This like slow moving arrow or this kind of arcing arrow, and anything that made it so that it wasn't just completely overpowered also made it not really feel like a bow anymore. And so we went through 4 or 5 different iterations, like entire overhauls of how the weapon would work, until we found what is currently in there, which is this. They're very long hitboxes, but they're also very narrow. They're very thin, kind of needle-like, and very fast. And so they don't linger for very long at all. They're not out there for very long, and you have to be precise with them. And then we also did a lot of, it's not just pure archery, there's a lot of motion in it. So a lot of the moves themselves will move you around. So it's actually kind of hard to kite with it and stay at a distance. You actually are sort of incentivized to close in and keep a high pressure up on your opponent. So that took a lot of playtesting and a lot of iteration. And we first start with the feeling of it. And so when we first sit down to play with a new weapon or a new character goes through the same process because they have their own special moves. You think about how you want the character to feel and then how you want the character to play, and you get those in the right spot, and then you start iterating on the balance. And you're always keeping balance in the back of your head, but usually when we first play a weapon or we first play a character, they're overpowered, and we're okay with that because we want to make sure that the feeling is right. And then once the feeling is right, we start bringing the balance actually into play, and we start looking at, there's all these different knobs that you can tweak. How fast does the hit come out? How hard does it hit? How big is the hitbox? How long does it take you to recover after doing the power? Those are just kind of some of the biggest knobs that you can tweak. And once you get it feeling the way you want it to feel, you start looking at, okay, what are the knobs we can pull back on and not break the feeling of it, right? So with the bow, that was very clearly, it had to have good range and it had to be fast. Anytime we had it moving slow, didn't feel good, didn't feel like a bow. It felt like something else. And so we knew that, okay, these are kind of the 2 knobs that are the most important. So we can start pulling back on maybe damage or pulling back on how big the hitbox is. And then you just kind of have to try to balance all of those things together so that you get a move that isn't overpowered. And then you start playing it. You play test it a lot. You play test it all the time. You can come up with as many formulas as you want to make sure that the numbers look right on a spreadsheet, but the spreadsheet isn't the game. That's one of the most important things. Even if it's like, well, look, on the spreadsheet, this is balanced, should be fun, we should be good. You have to get in game and you have to play it, because when you're playing it, that's when you're feeling it. And if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel fun, it doesn't really matter if it's balanced numerically. You have to kind of make those adjustments in game based on the feel first. And so then you play test it all the time, and then you start looking at which move does somebody just use over and over because it is way better than all the other ones. Okay, why is it better? What's the situation where they're using this all the time? Is it just because it covers so much area and you can't get past it, and so even if it doesn't do much damage, it doesn't matter because you still can't get past it, so you can just blink away with it forever and ever and ever. Okay, well then we need to give people a chance to get around it. So either make it a smaller hitbox so that it can't just dominate the field, or maybe if you miss somebody, make it take longer before you can fire the next shot so that there's a bigger moment that somebody can get in and punish. So it's really, really hard. It takes a long time, but I'd say, the short version is you got to get the feel right first, and then you got to bring in the balance so that it feels right. So you got to get the feel of the move and the weapon right first, and then you got to bring in all the numbers so that it's not overpowered, and then make sure that once you've done that, it's still fun to play with.
Right, exactly. And before the show started, Nars and I we were talking about the stats of a particular character, and we were talking about what we're kind of interpreting it because the gauges are displayed below the character, but there's an illustration next to it. So we kind of, through the illustration, think we understand. Maybe I'm wrong and we're not on the same page, she and I. But I believe like the first gauge below the character on character selection is the damage dealt by a normal attack. And then the next gauge, I believe, is the damage of a power attack. So some characters are better to just do quick attacks with, and some characters are better to do the full special moves, the powerful moves. And then there, I think, is a shield. That's how much defense they have. So I guess how much their damage on hit, like a damage reduction on hit. And then their speed. That's character movement, base movement, right?
All right, so you're almost there. You got some of it. So that's lesson number 1 is we need to finish getting our tutorial info in. And so we actually explain it to everybody, because you're right, we don't actually say anywhere what they do. So that's not the best thing in the world. The first stat that's just the sword is your attack, and that is how much damage you do when you hit somebody, and that's how far you send them when you hit them. It affects both of those things. So you hit harder and deal more damage when you have that stat with all kinds of attacks. They can be quick attacks or heavy attacks. It affects both. Now, in general, your quick attacks are higher on the damage side of things, and they don't send people as far. And the heavy attacks are less on damage, and they send people farther. So it does affect the different attacks differently. But basically, it makes you hit harder in general. The next one is attack speed. And that makes it so that when you do a charge attack, your min charge time is faster. So it reduces that min charge time. So if you're doing a special and you have a high attack speed, you can get your special out faster. And then it also changes the recovery once you've finished an attack. So it doesn't make your actual attack itself faster. It lets you attack more often, more quickly. So Hitori can follow up. She has a very high attack speed. She can follow up her attacks with another attack much faster than, say, I play Nash, who has a very low attack speed. So he has to be kind of much more conservative with what he's throwing out there. The next one is defense, which you're pretty much right on. It is specifically what defense does is it reduces incoming damage to you, and then it also makes you recover from being hit faster. So it kind of increases your air resistance when you're being launched. So if somebody sends you, and it would normally send you 100 feet, let's say, and you have high defense, maybe it'll only send you 90 feet instead of 100 feet. So it makes it so that you stay in the fight longer, essentially, or harder to knock out.
90 versus 100 in this game is tangible. Because there's huge, so many times when I've been like so far out of frame that I'm in the reticle, and I'm like, don't die, don't explode. And it's like, yes, I made it. And you can actually get back. So that's significant in this game.
So, that's why characters like Queen Nai or Roland are so hard to get out of the arena. They kind of keep hanging around and keep coming back because they get that last little bit of resistance. And then the last one is movement speed. You're dead on with that. That's how fast you move. So when you're running around. So that's the four stats. And it took a long time to get to those stats too. That's another place where the original stats that we had, you couldn't really feel them in game. They didn't feel like they were making a difference, even though they made crazy amounts of difference on the back end. But again, spreadsheet's not the game. So even though on the back end it all comes out right, it just in game it wasn't a thing. So we had to kind of keep shuffling what those stats were and how many stats there were.
You touched on the back end. That's perfect. Yes, and you touched on the back end. Do you compile information on the back end? It sounds like you do. And it's how early did you build that into the game?
Right off the bat.
Okay.
So that's the it's another lens to look at the game through. It's not it's not the ultimate answer, but it's what that lets you do when you have that data that you can go to, especially when you have a lot of it. You kind of need a lot of it to be able to rely on it. When you have just a little bit of data, it has a high variance, and it's hard to kind of draw any real conclusions out of it. But when you have a lot of data that you're collecting in the back end, what it lets you do is when you hear people talking about something that they feel in the game is wrong and they're trying to describe it, you can take what they're saying and then go look at the data and try to figure out what it is that's actually doing it. So we hear one of the things that we get a lot is win rates of characters. Like Hattori, she wins all the time. This is a great example. Hattori, she's so overpowered, she wins all the time. Well, when we go look at the data, we collect win rates and all of the character attributes and everything. So we can splice it up however we want. We can look at what are the win rates for any given character, just ever. We can look at win rates based on your MMR with another player. Like, so we can narrow it down to, okay, people of similar skill level, what are the win rates of the different characters? You know, is this just because high skill players are getting matched with low skill players or something like that? We can look at it by stat or by weapon, or we can carve it up in a million different ways. But with Hattori, it's a great example because it's a constant feedback that we've heard is that she's always overpowered and she always wins. When we actually look at the data, what happens is she's actually a little bit underpowered from the other characters. She loses a little bit more often than she wins. This is very close. Most of our characters fall between just a couple percentages off of 50-50. So she's right around she's usually right around like a 48 or something like that. But we have usage stats too. And she is by far the most popular character ever, right? People love her. She's a ninja. She's fun to play. She's Hattori. They love her. So what happens is she wins a lot of games. Not necessarily because she is stronger than other opponents, but because there's a lot of Hattoris that play games. Mm-hmm. So she's winning the right percentage of the time, but she's being played way more than any other character. So the chances are when you go play a game, you will frequently see a Hattori who wins. And so, the data, that's just kind of one example of how the data can kind of help form a lens for looking at what feedback is coming off of players. And that's not always, you can't always just completely trust the data. So we have, there are other characters that we have where their win rates look right, but we still, when we dig farther, we still figure out that something is off. Maybe that it's a skill level thing. Like the win rate amongst players who have a high skill level is right. But when you drop down to the lower skill levels, that character loses often because there's some trick about learning how to play that character that isn't apparent. And so we can kind of figure that stuff out too. So you collect the data as early as you can. The early data that you get isn't going to be super useful. It's going to be almost more just kind of another anecdote to look at and to think about because you won't just have like a bulk of data. So you won't be positive that it's reliable. So, but the more of it that you have, the more of it that you gather, the better off that you are. And I would track everything. We have to limit it somewhat to make sure that we're not just clogging the database with useless stuff. But that's a lot of what I do is getting in there and looking at what's going on in the numbers that we're seeing, the results of the games that players are playing. So it's really important, and it really, really helps.
Excellent. And it sounds like you don't use any kind of automation in your balancing. It seems like you're very close to the game. It's a very fine, delicate touch when you're doing tweaks. Or are there kind of any broad number collapsing techniques that you've had to use, or I don't know, any kind of automated test, and not automated testing, but automated correction of your numbers or anything like that? Like everyone's strength's got to go down by 10, or like base movement speed in the whole game is too high. Or have you ever had to do any sweeping things? And did you ever use automation? Because some people are like, oh yeah, I automatically balance my card game, for example, based on this statistic, etc. So is it automated, or is it all tweaking by hand?
So all of our actual tweaks are by hand. There's places that have used automation really well. I see you, Rathan. Rathan's he's our brand manager. He's the guy that handles all the PR and stuff. He's in there. I see him. EVE Online uses automation really well in the actual game output. So they'll put out a mission, and the rewards for the mission are actually determined by the average completion time of all the players playing the mission. So they'll start it somewhere where they think it is fair. Like, say, this should be a 15-minute long mission, so we'll give it 15 minutes worth of rewards. But then, as players do it, it changes what the rewards are based on how far off they were from what the players are actually doing it in. So if players are doing it in 20 minutes instead of 15, it'll increase the rewards for the mission just on the fly. It'll keep adjusting itself, which is really cool. But we don't do anything like that as far as game balance goes. We don't do any sort of that level automation. We do use automation to do like server load testing, trying to figure out where we get slowdowns in the clients. We should use more automation. One of 1100 is one of the guys that people. That's one of his online name is not actually named 1100. But he was just talking the other day about trying to set up automation to find where combo moves that are supposed to be true, that are supposed to be guaranteed combos. So if you input it correctly, you should be able to string this move and then that move. Those don't always wind up being true. There are scenarios where they won't be true. And so he's talking about setting up automation where he can just constantly have bots going through and finding out if they drop one of those true combos, which is a great idea. It's just something that we should be doing more of. But it's, you have to take a step, you have to sort of take a step back, kind of get out of the day-to-day, like, working on stuff and making stuff right. Take a step back and say, okay, I'm gonna stop working on the problem that's right here, and then create a way to get more info about that problem. So you have to kind of stop your natural workflow to create that. So it's kind of a thing that is easy to not forget about, but not ever get to do, and then you make a point of doing it. So we like automation. We don't use it as often as maybe we should. So it is a little bit more kind of hands-on. But yeah, I definitely think it can be really helpful for making your game better, even if you don't go to the extreme that like Eve does.
Right. Perfect. Well, I think that was an excellent answer. Thank you for covering all the bases. And I believe it is time to take our 10-minute break so we can get a little bit of water and certain things like that. So we will be back shortly. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome back, everybody. And this is the second segment of the LFG podcast where we are going to get a little bit more open-ended with our questions. A little bit more conversation will occur with both our esteemed guests and panelists as well as the chat. So make sure to put your questions in there so we might address them if they're appropriate. And I do emphasize be appropriate. So other than that, Nars, would you care to lead?
Absolutely. So this is actually a chat. This is actually a Twitter chat question, and this is something that I was going to ask you myself. So, specifically when it comes to purchasing stuff within the auction house, I know there's two different kinds of monetary that you guys have. You have the mammoth coins, and then you have the gold coins.
Yep.
Why can't you convert coins to mammoth coins? And what are you supposed to do with the gold coins? Because you can buy.
So. So gold is that's the primary way that you unlock legends in the game, and we wanted to make sure that unlocking legends is people always wanted a good, fun reward for playing the game. So the goal with that is to make sure that while you're playing the game, you're actually getting something as you go. So the idea is not to make it take forever and ever to get each character unlocked, and that's we fully expect people to get most of the characters through gold. If you have the characters, if you buy them with mammoth coins, or you have the all legends pack, the other thing that you can do with gold is when you get a legend to level 15, I think you can purchase the white color scheme for 15,000 gold, and then when it's level 25, you can get the all black color scheme. It's black with like some red accents for 25,000, and so those are kind of ways that you can invest extra in that character to kind of show off how committed you are to the character. We get asked a lot, well, what else can we do with gold? And that's a place where we have to be really careful. And this is the same reason that you can't convert gold into mammoth coins. So it's a free game where you get everything totally for free. You can play all of the content. We never section it off. All of our revenue comes from cosmetics. And that's what is, there is a set of cosmetics. Most of the cosmetics are limited to mammoth coins. Now we plan to have other ways to get cosmetics, you know, special events and stuff like that. But the bulk of it is in mammoth coins. And we have to be very careful about the relationship of gold and mammoth coins. So if we have a conversion there, then we have to plan it so perfectly or make the conversion so bad feeling to a player that we're not making it so that we don't have a revenue source and there's no way for us to support the game. And the same thing kind of goes with, if we have another thing that you can do with gold, it goes the other way. We totally recognize that people who have the All Legends packs are looking for something else to do with gold, and we're thinking about it. We're trying to figure out different ways we can go. But what we don't want to do is create another sink on gold that makes it feel like you have to pay for characters. You have to buy the Legends. We're very, very cautious about that. We want to make sure that that the primary way that it feels good and fun to unlock the characters as you play the game, and not like it's a way that we're trying to kind of secretly hide content behind a wall and sort of strong arm you into paying for a character. That's not what we want to do at all, and we want to be very, very careful about that. So if we introduce something for the people who have the All Legends pack that they can buy with gold, there's a risk that that thing is attractive to the regular players who are not paying to unlock characters. And if that happens, then their gold starts disappearing, and then it starts to become a real bad grind for them to get characters, and it doesn't feel good, and it feels like we're trying to really push them into buying the characters. And we're really sensitive about that. We don't want to do that at all. So that's a place that we're going to move really slowly. Again, we hear that question a lot, and we totally understand where it's coming from. And so we think about it, but we don't want to push people into buying characters with real money. We want gold to be the primary thing, to be the thing that feels like it's what you're doing, and it's what you're supposed to do. And you know, if you play the game, you get a good steady reward worth of those characters. And so we'll be really nervous about introducing new gold sinks, to be totally honest.
That's a great precaution, though. Like, I admire that. And I know other MOBA games, they do the same thing. Like a big game, Dota 2, a lot of their skins and a lot of their in-game content, you can grind for it, but you can also purchase it. But a lot of the stuff is versatile in the sense that if you're purchasing skins, you can purchase it with mammoth with regular, like for League of Legends, you can purchase it with RP, or you can purchase it with IP. But if you want to purchase it with something that costs money, you're able to, but there's no sync between, like, you can't transfer RP to IP or vice versa.
Right.
So
right.
I respect that.
Yeah, and I think their dual structure, we're set up very similarly to them. Their dual pay is only for the character unlocks. Their cosmetics is you have to use RP to get the cosmetics.
Right, exactly.
So it's a definitely similar thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's always, you got to be really careful about it. It's really tricky to get those things right. Or if we decided that there was a way to earn some mammoth coins, again, it's really tricky to make sure that it's a way that is good and rewarding to players, that also doesn't devalue mammoth coins, and then also isn't just kind of like an insulting pittance, right? Like I wouldn't be worried at all if I was like, okay, you can get one mammoth coin every week, no problem. But who wants one mammoth coin every week? That's no good. It's not a good answer.
Yeah, log in and just get a free mammoth coin. Log in every day for 365 days.
No, nobody wants that. It just makes people angry. So it is something that we think about that stuff all the time, and it is feedback that when we get, we pay super close attention to. And I know I sound like a broken record when and somebody in chat actually mentioned it, that I answer every answer kind of has part of the same refrain in it, which is that the feedback is so critical to us. But it really is. It is.
Yeah.
It's the only way that we survive as a game is we make sure that what we're doing is what the players like and what they want. And if we don't listen to them, it's really at our own peril.
Absolutely.
And speaking of, I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you continue going. But speaking of monetary sales in your game for microtransactions, if you care to call them that, or if you have a better name for those, are there any sales where things go on sale a little bit, and are any of them coming up? Because we do have an audience of interested parties. Are there any sales?
So we have done Steam sales so far for like the packs, but we haven't done sales in game yet. But they're in the plans. They're we haven't gotten that system fully online and worked out and gotten all the specifics in. But we like sales. Sales are good. People like sales. Sales make everybody happy. So we'll definitely be doing sales for in-game stuff. But I don't have a timeline for you right now.
Sure, you can continue, Nars. Sorry, I was curious about that.
No, I saw that they were asking in Twitch chat, so it's totally fine. So another question from Twitch chat also, which is from Blooper. Why did you go for a level up system, especially when it came to the characters?
Yeah, so that came from wanting to give people a reason to what they're playing. So it's great to have a fun game that is great to get in and you play it and it's fun to play. That's great. That's the backbone of our game. But everybody always wants to why am I going to play one more game? What am I getting out of playing one more game other than having a good time? What am I working towards? And so we approached coming up with a system that you can actually grow. And now we wanted to make sure we knew that, and we toyed with different ways to set this up, but we knew that we wanted to be a competitive online game out of the gate. We didn't want to hide sort of power even behind a progression system, right? So I think when we first talked about it, we were like, oh, well, you could gain stat points that you can kind of, as you get higher in level, your stats kind of go up, and you'll be playing with people of similar levels, and so it'll kind of balance each other out. But then we thought, do we gain a lot out of doing that sort of growth feeling to the characters? It causes problems. It means that old players can't play with new players because they'll just, not only are they more skilled at the game, but they're just physically stronger at the game. And at the end of the day, we thought, we don't even want to really mess with that. We don't want that risk. We want it to be a level playing field, that what determines who wins is skill. And there's that's you can work to increase your skill. As an old player, you're going to have more skill than new players, and so you're going to be better than new players. But we didn't want to risk having it be, oh well, it's strength and power and progression that is why you're winning your games or anything like that. We wanted it to be kind of more pure. And so, but we knew we also wanted to give you something while you're playing the game. And so on top of gold, leveling up is always fun and it's good. And we were thinking about what could we tie to it. And so we came up with the rune system, the relic system that changes your stats just a little bit and isn't available in all game modes right now. Actually, we might have put that back. I'm not sure. We always kind of are flirting with, is it ready to go into the latter games? I don't think it is yet. But so it gives you options, not strength, not more power, but options, and so you can tweak your character a little bit in how you play. And then we also unlock colors. Colors are something that are always fun for people to get. You can kind of pick what your favorite one is, and it's always different for each person, which one they latch onto. Except for black, white, and red tend to be pretty you're pretty safe in guessing that people really like either black, white, or red. One of those three people are going to really like. And that's why they come at the end of the progression.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that why they come out there at the end?
Yep, that's why they're at the end. Or that you have to invest coins to get the white and black, or the two kind of tops of colors. And so basically, we decided we wanted those to be, instead we could have put those in the store and tried to monetize them, and we said, they're fun, and it feels good to get stuff while you're leveling your character up, and so you can kind of show off to players, oh, I I play Nash all the time. Check it out. I've got red. And so we wanted to make sure we had that feeling in the game. And so that's kind of the thought process behind how we decided to do an XP system and a level up, but not have it be a character progression in the sense, like in an RPG sense.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, because then you can rank people by the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna go on with my next question. I hope you don't mind, Trey.
Oh no,
So,
roll with it.
of all the maps, so there's, Brawlhalla, there's King's Pass, there's Grumpy Temple, there's Twilight Grove, there's Mammoth Fortress, Shipwreck Falls is one of your newest ones.
Yeah.
What are these places in this world that you've created? Because it's like we see all these places and we're like, are these actual places? Are these just inspirations, or are these like telling a story?
So most of them are tied to a character in one way. Shipwreck Falls is obviously a Thatch level, right? That is, you put Thatch on that level and you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's where he belongs. And so, our idea, that just kind of happened naturally while we were coming up with what we wanted levels to look like. It was very easy to start saying, oh, okay, well, where would Hattori fight? Oh, okay. Okay, well, where would Lucian fight? Oh, it's got to be somewhere spooky, make sure we got a place that looks kind of creepy and scary and dark of night, and you should run and hide. Okay, all right, that's Blackguard. Got it. And so once that started happening, some of them happened before that, like Brawlhaven just was kind of hey, we need a place for these guys to throw down. But once it started happening, we kind of just leaned into it, and these are sort of home territories for players, and not necessarily like a place on Earth that they're going to and fighting, but they're kind of the ideal of where they came from. And they're all sort of arenas, and Brawlhalla is like an ongoing tournament series, and all the legends are sort of the best of the best of the best in all of Valhalla, and they're throwing down for kind of a fun, because what are the best warriors going to do when they're sitting around waiting? Well, they're going to throw down. They're going to fight. They're going to see who's the best. So they're sort of different arenas that they get to go to, and a lot of them are themed, tied to the characters. And the ones that we have in the works now are also tied to other characters. So I think that's something that's going to feel strong for quite a while.
Absolutely.
All right. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, good.
I was going to say, you go, try it, go.
Okay, good. I've been sitting on this one for a while, but this one hits home for me. So I've been broadcasting on Twitch for about 1.5 years, and I've played a variety of games. So I have over 300 games on my Steam list of owned games. I can pull them out via random game generator, etc., etc. And I've played a lot in my time. And so I have seldom stumbled onto such an active community on Twitch. It is a very active community for Brawlhalla. I highly recommend anybody who's a broadcaster out there to play this game. You will have people join your broadcast, you will have them be active in chat, and they will want to play this game with you, and it's an excellent multiplayer game. So
yep, I see Berserk Exo and Potana in chat right now, who definitely came out of the woodworks to come watch.
Oh, that's perfect, and that's great. Are they from the studio as well?
No. They're some of our better players. Berserk Exo is a fantastic player. And Potana is right up there. It's like you were talking about, that community, that active Twitch community, and it is super active, and it's a nice tight knit group, and they do so you'll recognize the names right out the bat once you start kind of like hanging out and chatting with them, which is we're lucky enough to get to do.
Mm-hmm. And so, have you taken any particular actions to build the Twitch community around your game?
The action that we took was to start streaming, and that's not what built the Twitch community. That's what got us talking with the Twitch community. So we've been really lucky. The community that we've gotten from the beginning, when we decided to do early access, and we knew that we were doing it because we needed to listen to the community and we needed to get involved with the community in order to make the game successful. And so it was a real decision for us to do that and to put a high priority on it. And so anytime we had an avenue to interact with the community, whether it was, at first it was just on Steam forums. When we launched the game, it was on Steam. And we were super active in the Steam forums. We're still very active in the Steam forums. There's a lot more volume in there now than there was when we first started, but we knew that we had to do that we had to get to know our players and talk with them often and frequently. And Twitch became one of those avenues for us. These players were doing videos and they were streaming, and we were lucky enough to get involved as a part of the PJ Sultan of Stream tournament with Twitch at PAX South when they first started it. They wanted us as one of their surprise games to pit all their streamers against each other. And we kind of made the decision there, all right, we're getting involved with Twitch. We got no idea what we're doing. We're going to be terrible at it, but we're always talking about like, oh, we should get involved with Twitch. We should figure out, okay, what's our plan going to be? What are we going to do? How are we going to structure it? Do we have everything set up? And when we were at PAX South, that's when we thought, nope, no more waiting, no more planning. If we wait for our plan, we're never going to do it. So we're going to start streaming. We decided, we got back from PAX South, we're going to stream every Tuesday. That's our day. We're going to stream. What are we going to stream? No idea. Maybe we're going to talk. Maybe we're going to play the game. Who knows? Well, how do we do it? I don't know. Let's go Google it, right? And so we just started. We just started doing it, and they were terrible. The first ones they're so awful. They're so full of blank screens and broadcasting without switching scenes. And I mean, we do everything wrong. We're professionals. That's what we strive for. But the amazing thing is that we just got to connect to that community right off the bat, and Twitch is so instant. It's, the more we've gotten into game development over the past years, the better the tools have been to talk to the community. There was email and forums, and Reddit is another place that it's easy to access people. But Twitch is instant. It's instant feedback, back and forth. There's never been a way to do that before. And so once we started doing it, we were like, this is great. This is fantastic. And then the community has just kind of continued to grow. And it's, I think that we're part of it. We are not the reason that the community grew. Our community is fantastic, and it has just amazing people in it that keep the ball rolling and keep doing stuff and keep talking with each other and sharing new stuff. And it's one of the most friendly communities I've been involved in. And I'm happy as can be that I can be a part of it. And so to say, is there a thing that we've done to encourage it? We've been accessible, but I don't think that's what's done it. The community is what's done it. It's that group of people has just, from the beginning, been super tight-knit and super helpful and super welcoming. We even get I don't remember where it was, but I remember just thinking, oh, this is the best. We were doing a stream, or we were on a stream that had a lot of new viewers coming in to watch it. And one of the community members was like, okay, hey guys, a lot of people are going to watch it. Not all of them are going to like it right off the bat, but just be nice and helpful to anybody with any questions, even if they come off kind of hostile or whatever. And I was like, this is the best community. What kind of community starts off and does that? It says like, okay, make sure that we don't get too defensive when we're talking about stuff. I was like, I've never seen that. It's so good. We get to be part of it. I guess that's what we've done. But
that is awesome. I mean, have you done anything like host tournaments? Like from the like Blue Mammoth sanctioned tournaments, and we're putting it on and we're broadcasting it on Twitch. Have you ever done that?
So we've done a couple of local tournaments that have just been kind of opportunity in Atlanta. There's a lot of conventions that are here, so we went to MomoCon, is a big sort of sci-fi, anime, games, sort of just kind of all sorts of geek culture, everything. And we got to go there, and they were like, okay, you guys want to do a tournament? We're like, great, we'll do it just kind of on site, sign up, get people to play. We did that at Dragon Con as well. We've done a couple of things like that. we haven't done like a real like, here is the Blue Mammoth tournament. Pay attention. This is how you can be a part of it. This is how you can get into it. But we're working on doing it. It's something that we want to do, that we plan on doing. The community has run all kinds of tournaments, just left and right. There's tournaments basically every week. There's tournaments that happen, and there's some pretty impressive prize pools that get put up. It's really, really cool stuff. And we've helped, make sure there's casters for those, or cast some of those ourselves. Rathan, our brand manager, actually came from the community. He was doing streaming and YouTube videos, and we knew we needed somebody to help do that kind of stuff here, and also we needed marketing help, and it turns out that he was a guy who did marketing as well. And then we're like, oh well, we know him and he's good, we like him, so we've actually like onboarded people from the community, which is I think is awesome. It's great. And so that's how active the community has been in running tournaments and doing that kind of thing, is that we actually like hired people out of it.
And that's how it should be, because they're going to be the most passionate about the game, and thus progress it even more, bringing ideas, that passion also. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Really good.
So speaking of shoutcasting and tournaments, this next question is esports. Esports is such a big, dominant field in the gaming industry. We're talking like Dota 2, Call of Duty, Halo, League of Legends. Yeah. What about Brawlhalla? I mean, you said the community is already starting its own tournaments. How does that make you feel?
Awesome. It's great. We think we've got a good competitive game that's got a shot at making a splash in the scene, and but we also know that you can't just order it up and make it happen. You can't just force it. You can't just like invest X amount of dollars and you will have an esport. So we've built it to be competitive, and we listen very, very closely to our competitive community, and we make sure that when we're balancing and changing and tweaking things, it's supporting high-level gameplay. And basically, we'll throw as much gas on the fire as we possibly can, and hopefully it'll catch and it'll take off, and we'll get some really good stuff going. And over the next year, we've got plans to be throwing some pretty splashy gas on the fire to help things out and keep it rocking. So yeah, we would love for it to grow into a full-on esport.
Yeah, I think with the community passion, it's totally doable. It's totally cool with the community passion.
Mm-hmm. I could see this going on at Evo and just hearing people just go, oh, because so many salty things happen in this game, and if you take the wrong step at the wrong time, you are toast. Especially because in my own experience playing through, I did 8-person games like free for alls, and I just learned like, don't move unless you need to. Don't jump.
Yeah. The stuff that some of these players pull at high level is just unbelievable, and when they've done a lot of 2v2s as well, and the 2v2 strategies get super intense, where so there's, if you get hit while you're in the air and you're out of jumps, you get 1 jump back. And the reason for that was there was a point in the game when people would just kind of stand over you and throw things at you, and you couldn't get back into the game. So now if you throw something at somebody that's out of jumps, they get hit, they have a jump, so they have a chance to recover. So it's not just this death sentence. But because of that, we get these incredible plays in 2v2 as soon as you turn team damage on, where somebody will get knocked and they're going off the screen. They're just toast. But their teammate will recognize that that's happening in time and throw their weapon to give them one last jump, or to stop the velocity and get them going back to the screen. Like, it's so amazing that they can react that fast and have the presence to be like, I need to hit my buddy because that'll save him from getting KO'd. There is some crazy stuff. If you're into it, you should check out some of a lot of them are just they're online. They've been streamed and broadcasted and archived and on YouTube, and you can find some really nasty plays. There's one of the community members does a top 5 plays of the week. People send him in what they think were really cool plays, because we added a replay feature to the game, so they'll send him replays, and he'll do like these little short clips, so you can find these like just really intense play. It is cool watching the game get played at a level way higher than I could ever play.
And going forward, you guys are also supporting different gamepads as well. I mean, I hear right now you are currently supporting the new Mad Catz arcade sticks as well. So there's opportunities for different types of players that are concentrated in FGC or concentrated in like PC community. They can be able to just bring in their gamepad and just jump in and just play.
Yeah. So if you have a controller that doesn't work, you just send us a note at gamepads@brawlhalla.com, and we've got a guy that'll jump right on it and make sure that it works in the game. And we also, like, an important note for that is we knew we'd have a lot of keyboard players. And so we also made conscious decisions in the game to make sure that keyboard players and controllers, neither of them had an advantage. It would have been kind of easy to give an advantage to controller players, but we made sure that they were on the same playing field. So that's like one of the questions we get asked is why there's no up attack. So if you press up and hit an attack button, it's the same as being a neutral attack. And the reason is because on the keyboard, up is jump. And so we pared down and we said, okay, can the game survive without an up attack? And so we tried to structure it in a way that it could, so that controller players who could do up attacks very easily without jumping wouldn't have an advantage over keyboard players who, if they press up, are going to jump first. And so, there's a couple of little decisions like that, and we've got the competitive players are pretty split in the number who use keyboard versus controller. So we've done a pretty good job of keeping parity with those. But yeah, if you've got a controller that doesn't work, hit us up and we will put support in for it.
That is
Terraria,
crazy.
yeah, the beard is intense because it's November, and I know today's December. I could shave, but I just haven't yet.
What's the point? You've already gone so far. Just
Yeah.
never shave. You already passed the point of no return.
Yeah.
Do you ever feature broadcasters that choose to play your game via your Twitter, or give them the stream key to the Blue Mammoth channel and like feature people, kind of like the NVIDIA channel does, the Alienware channel does, HyperX channel does?
Yes to the first ones, no to the second one. We don't give out our stream key, but we do host people. We're hosting you right now. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And we try to give shout outs, and there's not a lot of people hang out in our channel when we're not streaming, because we stream twice a week for like an hour or two each time, so it's not a constant thing. So when we host you, it's a couple extra eyeballs, but not a ton. But yeah, we send out lots of love over Twitter and Facebook and on Twitch. We love people streaming the game. We totally support it. We've got all sorts of things that we'll do. I did a when I went to TwitchCon and did a panel speaking about how to get developers and streamers, how to work with developers as a streamer, kind of flipping it. One of the things that I said there was basically, if a streamer has asked us to do something or for help to do something, I've never said no. I don't care how big the streamer is. It's great having lots of people stream the game. So we love working with streamers. It's fantastic. People get to have fun playing the game. New people get to see it. They get to see something new, and we get more people seeing it. It's just everybody wins in that situation. So we are all about it.
Yeah, you did kind of flip it around. I was like, wait a second. I've done a talk on how to, market to Twitch streamers as a developer, but then I'm like, wait, no, that's not what he said. He said the other way around. I was like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty great. That is good.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of those, and it's and it was when I was going. I was like, well, I don't know what TwitchCon is going to be. We've been streaming. We're not a huge channel or anything, but I know I want to be there. It's gonna be the first one. I know I want to be there and see what it's going to be. And it's like, okay, well, what talk could I come up with that people might want to listen to? And I had listened to several. I don't think I had found yours, but I had listened to several of the other way of like streamers saying, "Hey, as a developer, here's how you reach out to streamers," and they were really, really helpful because I didn't know. So I was like, oh, but I could talk about the other way. I could let streamers know. Like one of the anecdotes that I have is that we got our first huge stream was Northern Lion played us, and there were so many lessons that I learned from that stream that I just didn't know because I had never been involved in a stream like that on Twitch. Like, we watched it and thought it was the worst thing ever. Chat was just trashing everything, and he dropped from like he dropped like 1,000 viewers or something like that. And we're like, oh man, this guy's never going to stream us again. Yeah, I sent him a note, and he came back and was like, "Oh no, that was great. The chat seemed to really like it." I was like, "What?" So that's like one of my things is, developers, even if they love Twitch and they're down, they don't necessarily understand your channel or understand how chat works. And so, just letting even that little thing, like letting developers know, like, oh yeah, this is great. This always happens when we do new games or whatever, but it's really good. And the fact that more people didn't leave is fantastic. And so just kind of talking about the experiences from that viewpoint, I think was, I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah. Because Twitch it's a strange critter, Twitch, especially when you're coming into it kind of not having been like a broadcaster or anything, just watched a couple things here or there. There's a lot to try to understand about Twitch, and so yeah. But I think most developers, especially smaller teams, love Twitch and love working with streamers just kind of across the board. I know there's some kind of notorious bigger things that haven't gone as great, but I think with the little guys, especially with indies, that there's a lot of love to go around for Twitch.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Seriously. Yeah, and what kind of advice do you have for independent developers to build communities around their games? Because I've noticed we focused a lot on Twitch here because we're on Twitch, but this is also going to end up on YouTube. So have you guys taken any strides, made any conscientious efforts to engage the YouTube scene as well?
We have, mostly because of Rathan, because he's much better at that kind of stuff than we are. Because we're a bunch of people who are used to developing games, and that's one of the things for indies is. It's not often that you have somebody who is savvy on your team about social media, because that's just not where your focus has been in general. It's not always true, but in general. And so I think we had put a trailer up like a year and a half ago on YouTube, and that was about it. But now, every time we stream, we export it and put it on YouTube, and Rathan makes sure that notes go out and that we're actively engaging people, and so it's important. It's anywhere that you can get your game out there for people to see, and there's all sorts of different audiences on the net, all kinds of different audiences. The people that we talk to on our subreddit generally aren't the same people that we talk to on our Steam forums. Now, some of them are key community members. They go everywhere because they are fantastic, amazing, awesome, helpful people. They go everywhere and they talk to everybody as much as they can about Brawlhalla, and we are super lucky to have that. But by and large, those audiences are pretty different. And so every time, when I would sit down and think about it, I'd be like, okay, well, we're doing streaming on Twitch, so we're pretty covered. There's VODs on Twitch. Good. No, the audience for people on YouTube, totally different than the audience of people that come and watch Twitch. And so not putting it up on YouTube, we're just not talking to a giant new pile of people. So finding every place you can engage is it's all important, and it's all worth it.
Yeah, even if you're a Twitch personality, like my main product is on Twitch. That's where we are right now, and that is my intent as a content creator. But to ignore YouTube is to ignore my left leg. You need two legs to stand on, and Twitch and YouTube go together very, very well. Because you're right, Twitch does have a VOD system, and it's currently in the process of being revamped. But people don't come to Twitch to watch VODs. We're not at that point in our platform's life cycle yet where people come here to watch pre-recorded content. Not yet. We're very much getting there over time, and with the advent of the new playlists and certain things like that, we're going to see more of that, as was announced at TwitchCon. By the way, everybody should go to TwitchCon. I know he mentioned it before. Go to TwitchCon. Great event. It's very chill. If you've ever wanted to meet every broadcaster you could possibly ever meet, that's the place to do it. It's very easy to just walk up to them and meet them. Like Lyrics, Soda Poppin', everybody big or small, you can just walk up to them.
It was really fun, and that was kind of a lot of the message that I gave to streamers with developers is, just go up and ask. And it's the same thing pretty much for everybody. It's one of the reasons I love the Twitch community so much. it doesn't matter if you're a developer on Twitch, if you're a streamer on Twitch, if you're a viewer on Twitch. People want to talk to all of the other people that are involved in Twitch. It's if you're a fan of Brawlhalla, come up and talk to us. If we're ever at a place where you are, come talk to us. We would love to talk to you. It's a blast talking to people that enjoy what you do. And it's the same with streamers. If you enjoy watching a streamer and you're ever a place where the streamer is, go talk to them. They will probably just be thrilled to talk to you. And it's amazing how true that is, just kind of across all of the levels in the industry. And it doesn't matter if streamers talking to developers talking to streamers, fans and developers and streamers. Everybody is just going to have a blast talking to each other. We hit I think we did 5 conventions this year. Where we weren't really even sure. We did PAX South, and we were like, let's see what happens. And after we did PAX South, we were like, let's sign up for all of them we can do, because this is fantastic. And so just having more places that you get to meet people is really awesome.
Yeah, I went to my first convention earlier this year, and I got kind of addicted to them. And then I traveled even as far as Germany, to go to Gamescom and everything. So I can't say or stress to the audience or anybody else who might be watching how going to a convention is really impactful. If you've ever wanted to be in a room of like-minded individuals, that is the easiest place. You know what? I'm thinking Nars and I met at a convention. Isn't that true?
Perfect.
Yeah, it's very true. We met at LEC2 in Virginia.
Yeah, which is a League of Legends event and minor league tournament, which was awesome. And I don't know. I just can't stress it enough. I went to so many conventions this year. I can't really afford to do it again next year because I'm making some changes in my life, just try to conserve and save a little bit more. But whoa, was it ever an experience? And you meet so many amazing people. I remember I was handing out business cards, and I was like, hey, I have a panel. I just recently uploaded a panel. Hey, I have a panel, blah, 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 blah. Here's my card, and in 10 minutes in this room, we'll be going live, and we'll have a nice panel talking about Twitch. And somebody said to me, oh, I run a Twitch channel. And I was like, oh, who do you run a Twitch channel for? And, Funimation. Like, oh, hello, how are you today? Nice to meet you. I suddenly bumped into somebody who I wanted to make a connection with just out of nowhere. So that's the serendipitous event of networking. It is so important. But you know what? I'm getting too non-technical. I can't let you go without hitting you with a couple of more technical questions.
Yeah, sure.
So when we're talking about fighting games, you normally have 2 types of attacks. You have linked attacks and combo attacks. What would you say this game contains? Does this game, and I'm going to rephrase my question in the middle of posing it to you, does this game benefit, or do linked attacks exist in this game, or is it mostly just short combos?
So what I would say is that we have a few true combos where once you start it, the input of the attacker is what decides whether or not the next hit lands or misses. And there's not really anything that the defender can do. We don't have a lot of those. There's a very few of those. We have a lot of moves where when you input them, it puts your opponent in a position where there are several attacks that you can follow up with, depending on what your opponent does. And we did that as a conscious decision. We didn't want to go too far down the road of, guaranteed combos and long combo strings can be really exciting and look really cool. They also are a little bit disempowering for the person that you are comboing on because their input at that moment isn't as important. And so we went down a road where we are much stronger. We're rewarding strong spacing and reading your opponent more than we are meticulous inputs on the attacker's part. Part of that is because of the style of gameplay that we wanted to get, where you're always kind of able to do a thing, and it's a little bit more frantic, and you sort of have to kind of outthink your opponent. And part of it is also because again, it's one of those networking choices. Networking, like frame perfect inputs, which is kind of what you want to go towards when you're going down the road of long combo strings, aren't necessarily the best thing for a game that's predominantly played online, because any interruption in your connectivity will really affect your ability to do that. And so, those are kind of two different reasons why we went a little less combo heavy. So there are a few that are in there, and they tend to be true for large chunks of your health, but then kind of fall off at the tail end. So they wind up being good initiators in combat and good starters in combat, but not great finishers in combat.
Oh, thank you. That was a really, I didn't think about that, and like networking wise, like what if you're in a combo and you hit a lag spike? What happens then?
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of, both people are not having fun at that point.
Yeah, you're right about that. Wow, that was a real eye opener on that one. Thank you. So when planning out attacks in the game, do you measure frame counts for various attacks? How much does frame count go into the design process for your particular champions?
Yeah, it definitely goes in. It's one of the big things that you have for balancing. So, kind of before I was talking about the different knobs that you have that you can use, and so basically what you're talking about is the time between when you start attacking, when you input the attack and the attack actually happens and lands. And so we count that, and you can actually we just released Powers Viewer, so you can actually go into training mode, and you can fire an attack off and go into the powers viewer and frame by frame go through those powers and see exactly what damage is happening, exactly where the hitboxes are, exactly where your animation is, all of those things. So you can kind of dissect it. So anybody that's interested in the nitty gritty of how the powers are happening can actually get in there and see that info. It's really cool. And we've had a lot of really good input out of that. We've had players find stuff, that we had missed that we needed to kind of tweak. And I think somebody sent us a picture of Queen Nai. I think it was Queen Nai. It was either Queen Nai or Hattori. Anyway, they were punching somebody, and in the animation, the head had kind of disconnected, and there wasn't a neck connecting the head and the body. And there's just one frame, just one little bitty frame, but it's great. So now we knew it, and we can fix it, and it's gone now. And so we love having players have the ability to dissect everything. But it's one of the tools that you have, and you kind of have to balance the hit frames with the strength of the attack, with how long it takes to recover from the attack. So you can have something that comes out very, very fast, but if it misses, or even if it doesn't miss, it takes a long time before you can come up with the next move. So those are kind of like the two different ends of the hit frames on how you can actually balance that power. But then you also take into account, generally our faster acting powers do less damage. They have less force on them. Certainly the charge powers have a lot longer because they have to go through a charge process before then you're releasing them. But those have like a bigger payoff when they hit. So it's super critical, but it's just one of the knobs that determines the balance of a power.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot. And when I was playing, I'm not so much of a fighting game player by trade, I would say.
Sure.
And so I missed a lot of just quick attacks or even power attacks. And I noticed that I couldn't recover. I was having difficulty, and I felt like I was just getting bodied because I was like swinging and missing, and I'm just like, come here, let me hit you, please, because it looks easy. Like you can watch the gameplay right now and be like, well, it'd be really hard not to hit somebody. Nope, that's incorrect. Everything is very precise. Unless you're purposefully trying to hit somebody, you're not gonna. Really, it takes a bit more skill than just swinging around. Because I remember my audience plays a lot with me, and when we were all new, we all went through the same evolution of play. Spam quick attack, and then we played like 2 or 3 games later, and if you were to watch the recording of that, just on my first session playing the game, everyone was like, spam power attack. And so when you've got 8 people playing the same way, it's really obvious to predict those play styles. And then I was like, all right, when everybody's spamming power attacks, I'm going to jump away. And then everyone was like, bah, I haven't hit a power attack. I'm just swinging around doing nothing. And so, it was kind of the evolution of just learning the game, is that you really do need a balance of both. You really can't, you're not going to benefit just by swinging it around. That's
right.
Button mashing is not a thing in this game. So,
right. I mean, there definitely players do it, especially new players, because you kind of, the way new players tend to dissect a game is you start doing a thing, and if you're getting success with it, you repeat that. And then in fighting games, there's a there's another way that happens where if you are doing something against an opponent and your opponent isn't learning, then you keep doing it. And so you can see moments where that happens in the game, but it's never the most efficient way to play. It's always kind of taking advantage of somebody going on tilt, or not paying attention, or not figuring out what the counterplay is, instead of being just like the best play. So you can definitely find people that use the same attack repeatedly, but it's not because there's not a way to counter it. It's just because that opponent hasn't figured out how to counter it, or that player is new and hasn't figured out a better way to play the game.
Yeah, actually, what you just said sparked something a little bit more complex that I had been thinking about, because I struggle with Lord Vrax. I like Lord Vrax. I don't play him, but a lot of my viewers, well, one of my viewers in particular, he's in chat right now. I will not name you, but every time he plays Lord Vrax, he will be like, hey Trightmare, how are you? I still haven't learned how to deal with this pistol attack. And I don't know which directional pistol attack it is, but it's the power attack where he kind of like, I feel like it's so strange the area that it takes up, because he'll like do 2 quick shots, charge up, and then fire a third one, and it's kind of like down on the ground in front of him a little bit, and I always get hit by it. I can't figure it out, and it's just the way he kind of, and you do that with Hattori as well, where she has several power attacks that are like, oh, you thought I was here? Well, I'm back here now, and now you're dead. And I play Hattori, so I actually like that one. And or Ada, where you go in the 3rd dimension just on basic power attack. I feel like, for the lack of a better term, I would just say that, you go overhead and shoot above everyone who's standing on the ground. Like you go over them, and that kind of telegraphing and that kind of really complex animation and very thorough animation just is a mind game. It's a mind game for you. If you don't have it figured out, you'll walk right into Lord Vrax's pistols every time, like I do. And it's just good telegraphing. You're like, oh, he's done shooting. Because the animation might look similar enough to his just basic, light attack pistol twice. Like, why did you just light attack? I'm coming for you. And then all of a sudden you're like, gone. You're boom. And it's like, no, I fell for it. Why? And with Hattori, like when she falls back, she just jaunts back and then swipes forward. That's amazing air defense, because you're like baiting them, like, come on. And it's like, too slow, gotcha, and they're gone. It's like, that's good. That's really good. I don't know how to explain that.
A lot of those are you just kind of got to get used to the power and the character and kind of know what to expect from them. And there's actually there's a pretty good trick to figuring those out. Anytime, so you're having a problem with Vrax with the one pistol move. It sounds like it's one of the it sounds like it's his neutral or his forward neutral pistol. It sounds like it's his neutral light.
Okay. Oh, really? It's his neutral light?
I think so. The one that it kind of starts shooting sort of out in front of him, and then if he hits, he kind of shoots twice more to hit you again.
No, it's got to be his power attack. It's got to be neutral power, I think.
Okay, well, the neutral power for him is kind of like an up-in-the-air ray gun thing.
Okay, nope, then it's forward power. Sorry. Well, process of elimination. Figured it out.
Whatever it is, here's a trick for it. Go play as him.
Okay, yes.
And use that move on people. And when they beat you, pay attention to what they were doing to get past the move.
I guess
it's counterintuitive, but it works really well. When you get something that is really giving you a fit and you can't figure it out, start using it on people, and you'll see how the counterplay comes into the game.
That makes a lot of sense.
Wise words from Z.
Yeah. One of the gods of Brawlhalla just told me how to make that happen.
Oh, no, that's all. That's all from Wraithen. He taught. So when we first started the game, when we released it, we were better than the people who were playing because we'd been playing it for months before anybody else got a chance to play it. Mm-hmm. And then very quickly, the community just got better than us, just heads and tails better than us. And we actually started watching Wraithen's videos because he would do these videos on how to get better at Brawlhalla. He's done a lot of he's played a lot in fighting games, and so he kind of thinks that way. So we'd start watching his videos on how to get better playing our own game, and it would totally work. It was so good. So we would never, we're always kind of a little bit under where the competitive players are for sure. But again, just kind of listening to what everybody else is doing and following it up is a way to figure out how to get better. It totally works. But yeah, that's not advice from me. That's advice from him.
Perfect. That is more than fine. So let's see here. We have time for one question, and then we gotta go. Let's see. How about this one? This is a nice one. Programmatically speaking, how is damage applied in this game? Like, just go ahead.
How is damage applied? Okay, so basically, what happens is I'll break it down even a little bit farther than that because there's damage and there's also force, and they're actually two separate things under the hood, but they kind of feel like the same thing when they're hitting.
Awesome.
So what happens is when your attack hits somebody, when a hitbox touches a hurt box, that attack is applied. The first thing it'll do is it'll take whatever the damage number it does and add it onto that player, so that they now have that much more damage on themselves. And then what the move will do is there's two different stats on the move. One is fixed impulse, which is force basically, and the other is variable impulse. And what those do is they decide how far you get hit. Wait, sorry, I missed a step. The damage comes in and it's affected by your attack strength, so that might increase the damage. The defense value of your opponent is subtracted from the damage before it actually is applied to the character. So you have a stat, like their attack versus your defense comes into play first. Then the damage number gets applied. And then it figures out how far to send you. And the way it figures out how far to send you is if it has fixed impulse or force, that's just a number that no matter what happens in the game, that's how far the move is going to make you go. Then it has variable impulse, which it'll add to the fixed impulse. But the variable impulse is multiplied by how much damage you have on your character. So the more damaged you are, the bigger that impulse gets. And then those numbers are added up together, and that decides how far you get sent. So there's a lot of moves that have like unarmed, for instance, has a lot of high fixed impulse moves and low variable moves. And what that means in practice is when you hit somebody with an unarmed move, you're going to move them away from you. They're going to get sent pretty far away from you. But it doesn't matter how damaged they are. If they're really, really damaged, if they're in their orange or the red damage, it's still going to move them just about as much as it moved them when they were just untouched and in the white. And the reason we do that is because we want unarmed to be good at clearing people off of weapons so that you can then get your weapon, but we don't want it to be a real good finisher set. So it's not great to knock people out. There's exceptions, but it's not great to KO people with. Weapons are generally better than that. And then we have like heavy moves on weapons generally have low fixed impulse, but they have a really high variable impulse. And the way that actually plays out in game is if you're attacking somebody that doesn't have much damage on them and they're in the white and you hit them with a heavy attack, they don't go that far. But as soon as they start hitting orange or red, when you hit them with that same heavy attack, they will go flying across the screen. So in general, you want to find your faster, higher damage, higher fixed impulse moves to work on a character at the beginning so that you're making them more vulnerable to the big attacks later, because the big attacks don't do much to them at the beginning of a match when they're fresh. And so that's basically that's how the damage works.
That's really informative, and I feel like knowing this is already going to make me a better player. Like, I'm already like, oh my gosh, that makes so much more sense. I've got to be really reserved when I do this, and maybe it's better to toss my weapon right now, given my situation and certain things like that. Also, it's just very cool because I didn't realize that, that stat is just as important and is just as used, the impulse that is just as used as damage calculation is. So it's really those two things working in tandem. And it's very intuitive, actually, the way that you explained it's very intuitive.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So for instance, that's the way, like when you look at the bombs we want to be like big and cool and feel really strong, but not just be one-shot kills. And so that's how they work. They have a certain amount of fixed impulse, and then they have a variable impulse that is smaller, so that when you hit somebody, no matter what health they're at, they're going to move. But it's not until they're really damaged that it's going to just fling them off the screen. So when you get somebody that's fresh and you hit them with a bomb, they don't go sailing. They'll move a little bit.
Yeah. And it also made me think about, you explained your short combos and also how impulse takes into account combos, because you're right. You said, depending on their position, you're going to be able to link another attack in or, continue the combo in some way. And yeah, impulse. So now it's not just the animation. It's also how far back you're hitting them and what the follow-up animation is, or if you propel your character forward. If you give your character impulse on attack, does that ever happen? Like, so you can give forward movement during an attack? That doesn't happen in your game.
Yes.
That does happen? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely moves that actually have a self-impulse on them that kind of move you around the field, too.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, like Hattori. I guess we mentioned that earlier. That one's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I feel like we have covered this game adequately. How about you guys? All right, perfect. So let's begin closing our episode, bringing it to an end. Let's go ahead and reiterate who our panelists are, where we can find you on the internet, and how to keep in touch. I'll start with myself. My name is Trightmare. I am a variety broadcaster, and I am a partner of Twitch TV and a member of Team 2G Broadcasting Team. You can find me at twitch.tv/Trightmare, as well on all social medias at Trightmare. How about you, Nars?
Hi, I'm Nars. You can find me on Twitter at 1_Nars, on Instagram as well. That's it.
And how about our esteemed guest, Mr. Zeke?
I'm Zeke Dinohedron Sparks. You can find me at Zeke Sparks on Twitter. I'm Dinohedron on Twitch and on the forums. If you're looking for Brawlhalla, which is really where you should go because that's where all the information is, it's at Brawlhalla, Facebook/Brawlhalla, Twitch/Brawlhalla, everything just Brawlhalla. Just you can find us anywhere.
That is good. It keeps it very simple. And before we end the episode today, I want to remind you that there will be the final episode of Season 1 going on in the month of January, this time on a Saturday. We are going to not only do an interview, we are going to play a game with the developer as well, and the game is called Star Made. It is by Shine Entertainment, SCHINE, so make sure to tune in that Saturday for an extended play session with the devs, and that will be our capstone for season number 1. If you do like this broadcast and you're enjoying it, please do bring some attention to your friends and family by linking the YouTube videos as you see fit, but also please leave us some constructive criticism. We can make adjustments in future seasons of the podcast, and we do always ask if you're enjoying it, please leave comments on the YouTube videos or tweet at us at the new LFG Twitter. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we do need that feedback because it's a lot of effort to plan one season, and if it's not particularly appreciated, then we might not go out of our way to do it. But thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we will be leaving you for now, but keep in touch on the Twitter, and we will see you the 9th on Saturday, beginning at what I believe is 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right. Well, thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.